Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan, and here are the headlines that we're tracking for you this Friday evening. Prime Minister Modi pitches India as a viable chip-making hub as he inaugurates the Semicon India event in Gujarat's Gandhinagar. Foxconn chairman Young Liu tells CNBC-TV18 they are looking to invest over $2 billion in India over the next 5 years, says they have not found another partner after their proposed semiconductor joint venture with Vedanta fell through. The Nifty PSU index has rallied 65% in the last 1 year. The union government could raise 1.5 lakh rupees by offloading stake in 23 public sector companies where the shareholding is more than 75% and is expected to be lowered as per the SEBI mandate. A stake sale in LIC alone can fetch more than 85,000 crore rupees should the government do so. The Sensex and the Nifty snap a 4-week winning streak after declining 1%. The rupee weakened sharply. Bond yields spike after the Bank of Japan loosened its yield curve control. Bond yields across the world are also rising after the US reported better than expected GDP growth in Q2. The Jan Vishwas bill proposes to remove jail term for drugs manufactured in violation of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, only imposes a higher penalty. The government clarifies that the adulterated, spurious or drugs with toxic substances manufactured in violation of any prohibition will continue to attract stringent criminal provisions. The Supreme Court pulls up the union government over regulating cryptocurrency, says it is unfortunate that there is no law and expert agency to handle criminal cases. Asks the government, how can people be investigated or kept behind bars without a legal regime? Chipmaker Intel back in the black after 2 quarters of losses. Revenue declines 15% but ahead of Wall Street estimates. Meanwhile, US automaker Ford raises its full-year guidance after beating estimates. This even as the company expects its EV business to post $4.5 billion in losses this year. SoftBank-backed Ola records an operating loss of $136 million for FY23, according to a Reuters report. The company's chief marketing officer refuses to comment on the financials, but says the company is growing fast month on month. Also on the show, 3 days to go for the income tax return filing deadline to end. Artificial intelligence in simpler forms have sparked a rise in do-it-yourself return filings. A special report coming up. Well, let's start with the market action this evening. Stock markets have ended the day and the week in the red. So if you take a look at the Sensex and the Nifty, clocking marginal losses on Friday, lost about 1% or so. That's the Sensex for you, and Nifty ending flat. The Nifty Bank lost about 200 points. The Nifty Mid-Cap, of course, closed in the red. This, of course, has brought the winning streak that lasted for 4 weeks to an end. As I pointed out, the mid-caps, though, outperforming. In fact, the mid-cap index has gained 1.5% this week. Well, moving on now to analysis on how earnings upgrades and downgrades are moving the markets. 80 companies in the NSE 200 index have reported earnings as of yesterday. 38 of these have seen their earnings per share upgraded by brokerages. 42 have seen downgrades. Among those upgraded, Zomato has seen an EPS gain of 30% in the last 1 month, followed by BPCL, Tata Motors and Paytm, among others. Among those downgraded, Vedanta has seen an EPS loss of 18% in the last 1 month, followed by Dalmia Bharat, Tech Mahindra, SRF, among others. Now, the big global story. The Bank of Japan has eased controls on its government bond market. The move lifted Japan's benchmark bond yield to a 9-year high and sent ripples across global money markets. In India, government bonds reversed the initial gains and saw a sharp fall. The rupee weakened against the dollar by more than 30 paise today. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman launched a 30,000 crore rupee backstop fund for corporate bonds. Announced during the budget, the fund will be the buyer of last resort for corporate bonds in times of financial instability. Take a look.
In an economy, I think it is the financial sector which becomes a very effective barometer of the underlying confidence in the macroeconomic fundamentals of any country. And it reveals also the growth potential that exists. So today, if you see, it's for all of us Indians, it's a matter of pride that Indian financial market ecosystem ranks among the best in the world in terms of the technology and the value come volume aspects of trading.
Well, that is the Finance Minister on operationalising what was a budget announcement. Now, the government's offer for sale in Rail Vikas Nigam or RVNL closes today. By selling just over 5% stake, the government holding in the company is now below the SEBI mandated 75%. There are a total of 23 PSUs where the government holding is above that SEBI limit. Nimesh joins us now with his analysis on how much the government stands to gain if it does in fact dilute its shareholding to meet the SEBI norm. Nimesh.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, the government has diluted or they are selling stake in RVNL via OFS to bring the stake to 75%. What I've done is I've looked at the entire PSU basket. If you look at the entire PSU basket, there are 23 companies where the government holding is more than 75%. If they choose to dilute the stake to 75%, the government can raise close to 1.5 lakh crores. That's the amount that the government can raise by diluting stake. Now, as I said, the recent example is RVNL. The OFS for retail closes today, and it's been very timely done because the fact that RVNL has actually rallied 300% in the last 1 year. So now let's look at the list of stocks. There are companies where the government holding is more than 90%. It's largely dominated by banks. The Punjab and Sindh Bank, where the government holding is quite high. IOB and UCO Bank as well. I do understand it's difficult to dilute stake in the bank stocks, but look at LIC. LIC itself can give the government 85,000 crores because the government holding is still 96%. And if they bring it to 75, that's the amount of money, 85,000 crores that they can raise from LIC alone. Now look at the second list of stocks where the government holding is more than 85%. That's a very interesting list because there are a lot of stocks which have done well in the last 1 year. Fact is one good example. The stock has rallied 350% in the last 1 year, and only by diluting to 75%, the government can raise close to 4,500 crores. The other names like IRFC, General Insurance, New India Assurance, they put together can raise close to 8 to 9,000 crores, and also they've done well. But the most important stock here in that list is Govt. That stock has rallied 600% in the last 1 year. The government holding is still 85%. There is not a single institutional investor in Govt, and if they choose to do that, the government can easily raise close to 3,700 crores by bringing the stake to 75%. So that's interesting stock. Now look at the other list of companies where the government holding is between 75 to 85%. Again, that list is dominated by the PSU banks, where there's been a huge momentum. A lot of stocks have done well. But the other interesting name is NLC India, where the government can easily raise close to 700 crores. And as I said earlier, RVNL, it's been very timely done by the government to dilute stake because that stock has rallied, as I said, 300% in the last 1 year. So again, in RVNL, the government is going to raise close to 800 crores. But as I said, if the government chooses to dilute the stake to 75%, the unbooked profit for the government could be as high as 1.5 lakh crores. That's the amount which the government is sitting on. And the big kitty can come from LIC itself, which can contribute close to 85,000 crores.
Nimesh, many thanks for joining us. Now, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated Semicon India in Gandhinagar today. This is aimed at boosting India's chip design innovation. Day one of Semicon saw major players like Micron, AMD and Foxconn reiterate their investment commitments made during the Prime Minister's visit to the US last month. Speaking at the inaugural event, the Prime Minister said the government will continue to incentivize chip makers, adding that the semiconductor industry believes in the country's vast talent pool. Here's Prime Minister Modi, Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, along with top chip makers on their India plans.
सेमिकॉन इंडिया प्रोग्राम के तहत हम जो इंसेंटिव दे रहे थे उसे बढ़ाया गया। अब टेक्नोलॉजी फर्म्स को भारत में सेमीकंडक्टर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी स्थापित करने के लिए 50% की फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस दी जाएगी।
Lots of companies are discussing with us, quite a few of them, and we hope that in the coming 12 months, we should be able to have 2 more proposals which are signed and work started. Lots of manufacturing activity happening in a variety of the other sectors, defense sector, train, railway sector, airline engines will be manufactured here in India. Lots and lots of activity going on the manufacturing side. All of these are good consumers of electronics. So we are seeing interest from a variety of players. Most of them are very sincere industries.
Semiconductor requires, the downstream to have enough volume to support upstream semiconductors. And here in India, we see the downstream is growing, significantly. So there is a need to have the upstream, like semiconductor, to be built locally. So we see that great opportunity.
Okay.
And the government is very much understanding of the industry. So they're very supportive. I just had a meeting with Prime Minister, and his understanding of the semiconductor industry makes the right policy to support the semiconductor industry. I'm very optimistic.
One question, sir. Recently, of course, you had tied up with Vedanta. That JV did not work out. After that, you said you will look for partners independently. What has been the progress on that one, sir? What has been the progress on that one? Have you been able to find a partner in India?
We have not gone out to find another partner. And we continue working closely with Vedanta. And not only the semiconductors, but also some other items like panel, fiber-related stuff. So we still maintaining a very good relationship with them.
One last question. What will be your total investment in India, let's say, in the next 5 to 10 years as far as the semiconductor sector is concerned?
There will be definitely more than a couple of billion, in $1 billion.
Foxconn और हम लोग, we both were looking to have a partnership to who can provide us the technology. And Foxconn felt that probably they will be like to be in a downstream and somewhere else be connected with us, and which is the most welcome. And we were scouting for the partner, and the partners are coming forward, and government is also processing. I have no doubt in few months' time, as soon as the tie-up happen, we'll let you know.
Timeline कुछ है क्या?
2-3 महीने में 4 महीने में होना चाहिए.
We've been in India for over 20 years, and we've been growing dramatically from just a handful of people at that time to 6,500 employees today. We have a broad portfolio, but today what we announced is a $400 million investment, which will both allow us to grow our employee force over 3,000 people between now and by the end of 2028, and as well, we announced our largest R&D development center in the world will be in Bangalore.
For applied materials, we have been here for the last 20 years. We have more than 7,000 people. We have a lot of talent pool, and we have been working on developing the capability here for the last 20 years. And we have a lot of confidence on the capabilities here. So it's a prime time for our team to go to the next level, doing those engineering center we announced, and where we do the equipment commercialization and partnering with our suppliers.
Well, top chiefs of semiconductor companies on CNBC-TV18. You can catch our full coverage of Semicon India coming up at News Center at 9:30 p.m. right here. News from the aviation space. After conducting a special audit, the aviation regulator, the DGCA, has imposed a fine of 30 lakh rupees on Indigo Airlines for deficiencies in training and engineering. Indigo experienced 4 tail strike incidents on the A321 aircraft within a span of 6 months. The DGCA has directed Indigo to amend their documents and procedures in line with the DGCA requirements and OEM guidelines. Engine maker Pratt & Whitney has declared a loss of $181 million after Govt filed for insolvency in its Q2 earnings report. Pratt & Whitney said its operating profit fell by 24% year-on-year due to customer insolvency. The company hasn't named which customer, but its Indian buyer Govt filed for insolvency in May this year. The Supreme Court has pulled up the government over the lack of regulation of cryptocurrencies. The Apex Court has said that it is unfortunate that there is no law or an expert agency in place to handle criminal cases related to digital currencies yet. Abhimanyu standing by with the details. Abhimanyu, tough talk from the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court has asked the centre to clarify if at all it wants to set up a separate uniform agency to deal with digital and cryptocurrency fraud. The court was hearing a case filed by an accused who had not only sought bail but had also sought to club several cases of cryptocurrency and digital fraud which were filed against him in several states. The court asked the centre whether there is a need for a uniform law. The court said that cryptocurrency fraud is extremely grievous as a crime, and hence it it requires a specific degree of expertise to investigate it. The court said that the quality of investigation will suffer if at all the investigation officer is originally a constable and has been promoted to a different rank to investigate the case. The court said that cryptocurrency is as grievous as Hawala transactions, and hence it requires a big degree of seriousness on the part of the union government to ensure that investigations properly happen and there is uniformity in probes across the country.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. Global earnings. Intel bounced back from 2 quarters of losses, posting a profit for the June quarter. This as a rebound in personal computer sales lifted chip demand. The tech major's revenue rose in the second quarter compared to the first, reaching $12.9 billion and exceeding Wall Street's forecast. The company's also issued a stronger than expected revenue forecast. U.S. automaker Ford beating estimates in the second quarter, hiking its full-year growth forecast. The company was expecting full-year earnings to be between $9 to $11 billion. That's now been hiked to between $11 to $12 billion. This comes even as Ford warned that the market for its electric vehicle business will lose $4.5 billion this year. Now, IPO-bound Ola Electric has reported an operating loss of $136 million on a revenue of $335 million in FY23. This as per a Reuters report. The company's loss number has not been reported or filed with the government, which gives the company time till September to file the previous year's earnings. This comes at a time when the company is prepping for a $700 million initial public offering. Ola's chief marketing officer did not comment on the finances, but he said the company is growing fast month on month.
I don't think anything has weighed down the revenues of the company. We are growing extremely fast. Like I said, just yesterday, this is probably the fastest selling scooter anybody has ever made, which we launched yesterday. And last 3-4 months, we've been seeing the numbers. This month, again, we are much better than last month, again, close to 40% market share. So I don't accept the statement that we've been slowing down. I don't want to comment specifically on the numbers because they're speculative. And like I said, it's not the right person. But I would rather want to bring the attention to the market share, to the volumes that we are doing, to the new products that we are launching, and extremely confident about all of that.
Well, that is Ola's CMO. Time for us to head into a break, but up next, 3 days to go for the income tax return filing deadline to close. Artificial intelligence and simpler forms have sparked a rise in do-it-yourself return filings. Stay with us to find out more. Well, a quick check of some of the other big headlines that we are tracking tonight. Parliamentary proceedings continued to be disrupted over opposition sloganeering. The Lok Sabha has passed the Mines and Minerals Amendment Bill. A delegation of opposition lawmakers will visit Manipur over the weekend. The Jan Vishwas Bill proposes to remove a jail term for drugs manufactured in violation of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act. It only imposes a higher penalty. The government clarifies that adulterated, spurious drugs with toxic substances or manufactured in violation of any prohibition will continue to attract stringent criminal provisions.
People should be worried that if the new Drugs Act comes into force, then we have a big crisis. Because under the new Drugs Act, read with this section, they are allowing drugs which do not meet specification to just have fines. Those will result in deaths. So, for example, if you take simple aspirin, which is given as a blood thinner, for those who have had stents, if this aspirin is not the dose that is written on the label, according to the new drugs bill, you just get a little bit of punishment, which is a fine.
India's largest convention centre at Pragati Maidan, New Delhi, is gearing up to welcome guests of the G20 summit in September. The revamped ITPO complex, now called Bharat Mandapam, can accommodate over 7,000 people. There are around 20 meeting rooms with capacities ranging from 50 to 200.
It's a landmark in terms of its size. It's a landmark in terms of its facilities it's offering. And it's a landmark building because it will be hosting the G20 summit. Bharat Mandapam has all these and more, and much better, I can say that. Let's talk of the size. Now, we have got facilities where large conventions involving thousands of people, to be precise. We have a meeting hall where 8,000 people can participate.
Well, that's where the ministerial for the G20 will be held. With the July 31st deadline to file income tax returns coming closer, the IT website is seeing heavy traffic. The government has told Parliament that as of the 24th of July, over 7.4 crore entities have filed returns. That's nearly 7% higher than FY22. This number is bound to rise significantly if you count people who file even after the deadline passes. Anshul and Shivani Bazar's report that artificial intelligence in simpler forms have sparked a rise in do-it-yourself return filings. Take a look.
The officials at the Income Tax Department are a busy lot. Over 7.4 crore entities, individuals as well as companies had filed IT returns for assessment year 2023-24 by 24th of July. This number has been rising steadily over the last few years from 6.47 crore in FY20. As the filing deadline closes in, this number is expected to rise further. Filings by individuals has also been rising. The IT department officials' website says 11.46 crore people have registered to file their returns as of July 27. Over 5 crore of these have already filed their returns, of which 4.45 crore returns have been verified and 2.7 crore returns have been processed.
Overall, taxpayers across the country are interested and are using the DIY technology. I would say there is an even split between DIY and DIY across tier 1 and tier 2 cities. Primarily, DIY audiences tend to be more smartphone savvy, more tech savvy. So you will see the leading indicator is actually not where they live. The leading indicator is where they work.
ITR filing has seen tremendous change in the last 2 to 3 years. Taxpayers are taking deadline adherence very seriously. It has been noticed that people know about penalty and realize that government won't extend the deadlines now. Strict deadlines are not the only reason.
Experts say technology has made the filing process easier, like application programming interfaces or API which pre-fills the ITR data. Technology has also reduced the processing time and crunch refund timelines. Awareness and availability of compiled data like Form 16, Form 26AS and the newly introduced Annual Information Statement or AIS that records financial transactions of a taxpayer in a particular financial year have also helped.
These facilities have also fueled greater adoption of the DIY or do-it-yourself model of tax filing, relying less on the specialist or tax professionals to do it for them. There is another reason for this as well.
When they are participating in the stock markets, they're getting capital gains, capital losses, and all of that income needs to get reported in their ITR. So these, I would say, are the big changes. So the number of taxpayers has gone up. The data about the taxpayer, which the government has, is transparently available to the taxpayers. Refunds are being processed very, very fast with CPC 2.0.
Data from ClearTax shows that this rise in DIY filing is spread across Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. A long interesting trend, it says, is the rise in ITR 2 and ITR 3 filings, which are used when taxpayers want to disclose capital gains and other income. Its internal data shows that nearly 20% of its user base has shifted from normal ITR 1 to other ITRs in the last 2 to 3 years. This is more marked among Gen Z and millennial filers. The number of Demat accounts crossed 120 million in June, with CDSL and NSDL data pointing to a record 2.36 million new accounts being opened in June alone. The total is over 24% higher than a year ago. Of these 120 million, Demat accounts held in Gen Z make up 12% against just 5% in 2020.
All these bodes well with government's direct tax collection target, which was revised to 16.5 lakh crore rupees in budget. Now, the sticky point is whether refunds will play a spoil sport and what percentage will be zero tax liability filings. In New Delhi, Anshul.
Well, if you haven't filed, then go ahead and do so. The deadline is nearing. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. From all of us here, thanks very much for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.